What? I mean, holidays are over, right? Well, I have Jackson's birthday coming up. 18 years. Oh my gosh, I'm going to be the mother of an 18-year-old. This is crazy.
When my oldest turned 18, I was like, I'm not old enough to have an 18-year-old. What am I doing here? I don't feel old enough to have an 18-year-old, Don't you feel like when he's graduating too, and you're like, oh my God, am I really going to be the parent of a college student? Because he's going on to college,
Yep.
That's a great way of making us feel old.
Jackson, you're fired. No, this is what we're supposed to do as parents, right? Raise them to be confident and independent individuals. They go after what they want.
Yeah.
What he's doing.
Well job, Mom. You've done a fantastic job.
Thank you. Well, cheers. Hi.
Cheers.
And hi, friends. Welcome to another episode, Books and Booze. Yes, we are enjoying Waterloo Gin. The dogs. Hi, girls. We are enjoying Waterloo Antique Gin by Treaty Oak Distillery. What a great find. Oh my gosh.
It really was. We just stumbled on it and it was just so good. It's so good.
It is so good. I mean, it's from Texas and we got it you had it in one of the little liquor stores near your house, right? You just kind of picked it up off the shelf.
Well, my husband, he likes to bourbon hunt. And so we were just kind of going in there and I'm like, we need to pick up a bottle for our next book. And, I'm of course, we have our kind of like our guidelines of what we're looking for, small distillery, domestically within the U.S. And this gin fit everything, it ticked all the boxes, but it had this one little extra tick. It's brown. Like I'm a gin drinker and the gin was brown. And I said, well, this is unusual. And then I took a look and it was aged, right? What is it? Aged in oak barrels, right? Or
yeah. And that's what gives it its dark, rich color. I mean, it looks like 2 or 3 other gins as well. So Waterloo, I did a little more research on the distillery. Waterloo is from the Treaty Oak Distillery, their gin collection. And they chose that name because the town of Austin in Texas, its original name was Waterloo. So it's a real nod to the history of Texas. Yes. But Treaty Oak, as a business, they are a small business. I think when we did the research, it was like 25 employees, 20 employees, something like that, right? But they have an individual, I think her name is Jamie, and her focus is just really to look at the sustainability and eco-conscious efforts of Treaty Oak. And they participate with a lot of local organizations, but their goal is to make sure that they are just being super conscious. They say do the right thing because it feels good and tastes good. So different sustainability things like water and waste reduction, reducing their carbon footprint. But I love this quote from Daniel Barnes. So Daniel Barnes is the CEO of Treaty Oak. And he says, we strive to strike the perfect balance between heritage and innovation.
Ooh, that is fantastic.
It's so powerful. Right, because something like...
Is that their mission statement as the company? Or?
I don't know if that's their mission statement, but that was right at the top of their webpage. It should be. I think that's a beautiful mission statement.
I think that mission aligns fantastically, like my English there, with their why. It really aligns with their why. I can read right through it. They want heritage and they still want to be innovative. And that's great. That's a great why.
Well done, Mr. Barnes and your team, because everything we've tasted so far has been phenomenal. And we're certainly excited to dig into more. But for this book, we are enjoying the antique gin. So I have mine as basically a martini tonight. So, yep. And then
I've got mine with tonic. So I've,
like a gin and tonic.
A little gin and tonic, yeah. But I would really love to take it. We should do a road trip. Well, maybe, I don't know about road trip. We could do a fly trip. We could take a trip over there.
We can stop in New Orleans. I'm just saying, it's a good halfway
Yeah,
mark.
that's true. Yeah, take a road trip over there and visit them in person and take a look at their facility. I think you were on their website. Do they do tours and stuff like that for the?
And they even have a restaurant. They do a barbecue there. They have live music. Like there's just so much. They're on like 28 acres. It looks beautiful. I just yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Hashtag goals, right? Let's get out there and see them.
Yeah, definitely. Make sure you tag them on this too, so we can
give them lots of credit. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
All that small business recognition. Yes. So. All right, my friend, tell me a little bit about the book you chose for us. This is our second episode with the book.
Yes. So the book is called Mindset by Carol Dweck. Dweck.
Yes.
And it's really just talking about, your limitations and how some people have limited mindsets. You have a growth mindset or you have a fixed mindset. Fixed mindset folks tend to just really kind of stroke their own ego, feed themselves. They get fixated on a story or an identity that they have, or whatever that's been encouraged that is their strengths. And they kind of just get fixated on that, and it doesn't allow them to grow, or personal growth, financial growth, a lot of different types of growth, because they're fixated on kind of just maintaining this ID, they're what they identify themselves as. Whereas growth mindset, they, in other words, very humble. I mean, they have humility in knowing that they don't know everything. They don't really identify with anything except human, and they're just okay with just learning and continuously learning and trying to better themselves and reflecting inward to say, what are my weaknesses and what could I do to do better?
What can I improve on, right? And who's better at me at this particular thing, and how can I learn from them? So yeah, I agree. So the second part of this book, I feel like she really breaks down into these different mindsets in the three, I think, major areas that a lot of people could identify to, right? Like each section, the first section is sports, and then the middle section is kind of business and business relationships, and then the third being personal relationships. So, we all have different places where we connect to an author's vision and the story they are trying to walk us through. Sports ones, I think we, especially in America here, we put our sports players on such a pedestal, right? And they're used, and if you look up motivational videos on YouTube, like 90% of them have people of sports, like doing sports of some kind in the background over whatever is being said, right? Like they even take things that like Jim Rohn or Earl Nightingale have said just off a record, or a tape recording from a seminar, and they put it on top of sports pictures, because I think we all know that to be successful in a sport, like you've got to work hard at it, right? You've got to have grit and determination. But I like how she really breaks down the dangers of having a fixed mindset, or even just being naturally good at a sport, because she said it's almost bad for you if you're like they're at a disadvantage, I think she said, if they're naturally gifted at these sports, because they may not push themselves as much, right?
And I think that a lot comes through how people, we like to call it encouragement, right? We're encouraging you, but I think everyone has abilities, right, in various areas. And typically, we like to congratulate people on their abilities, which is fine, right?
On their achievements, right?
Yeah, their achievements.
You just won this. You just accomplished this.
Yeah. Well, and achievement, when I say also abilities, I remember as a kid growing up, in high school, it's funny because we talk about the three things, right? We talk about sports, relationships, and business, and every one of them is competitive in its own way. It's a competitive field, right? Yeah. So that's the core of it. And so I just remember kind of going through high school, and, you come across these guys and girls that, you know, they're in their sports field and you would always hear, oh, they're just a natural at it. Oh, they're just eye-hand coordination's just there. They're just born with it. They flew out their mother's womb knowing how to hit a baseball, you know, stuff like that, right?
And it can be discouraging to someone who's not good at it, right?
It can be discouraged to someone who's not good at it, but also to the person who is. So if someone came and said, oh, she's just a natural, she knows how to walk the catwalk, you know, she's a normal, great balanced girl, whatever, right? And then you start feeding yourself like, okay, cool, I don't have to do anything. I'm natural at it. And so I'm a natural. Same like the guy who, you know, oh, he's a natural at hitting a baseball. Yeah, he doesn't have to work at it. He's just good at it. And it gets fixated in your head that you're naturally good at it. And like I just cut you off, sorry. But going into they decide not to work on it as much either, you know?
And that's what Carol digs into, is she gives example after example of individuals who were not naturally, you know, like I had no clue Muhammad Ali's kind of origin story, if you will, and you know his initial fight against, I guess it's pronounced Sonny Liston. I'm really not a sports person, so no judgment, friends. But I guess Sonny had all the physical attributes to be a success, and Muhammad Ali did not. He was smaller, he was not as experienced, and things like that. And so that fight, that pivotal fight for Muhammad Ali against Sonny, I guess, was like huge. Like the odds were stacked completely against Muhammad Ali, but he trained and he focused, and in his head that what he talked himself up to, and he did so much time studying Sonny, the way he fought. He basically wanted to get in his head. So here he took somebody that he was told he couldn't beat, and he's like, well, let me just study him and know him and learn him. And sure enough, well, history's made, right? Yeah. Now look at, you know, we all have Muhammad Ali on this pedestal, right, of this great success story, but his journey to getting there, just incredible. Right?
Yeah, it is incredible. You know, not to say anything that I guess part of me, you know, as we go and read these books, right, there are parts that I agree and there are parts I disagree, right? And so one part that I disagree a little bit with is I do believe that people are born with natural abilities, right? Yep. And then as they recognize these natural abilities, they have an option of either growing that natural ability, right? Or taking it, or taking it for granted and staying fixated on it, you know. And so I think with Muhammad Ali, he was a little bit skinnier, but he was not small by any means.
He compared to Sonny.
Definitely, and you know, he was quick like a bee, right? Swift like a bee, right? So
sting like a bee.
Sting like a bee, swift something. I'm getting it all. It's only one drink, guys, I swear. It's only one.
I know. I see like my face is already flushed. I'm like, oh good Lord, and stuff.
So I disagree a bit in the fact that I do believe some people have natural talents, right? I've seen, I mean, like I was just going to, you know, in high school, you see these guys, girls that are playing sports and they're just really good at it. And they maybe did have better eye-hand coordination, say someone like me, you know. But as you recognize what your natural abilities and your natural talents are, that's where the growth and fit mindset comes into play. You know, where I feel like in Carol's book a little bit, she was just kind of saying there's no such thing as natural abilities. I'm like, oh, yeah, there is. You know, there is. You know,
well, they're obvious too. Like you can see it, right? Their size, their stature, the things that look like they come easily to them. Another one that surprised me, I didn't realize the struggle Michael Jordan had either. Again, you know, I grew up with him just being the superstar. Twice. Right. But apparently he was kicked off his varsity high school team, like for basketball, right? And then some of the colleges he wanted to go to just overlooked for different drafts. But he would get up at, I guess, like 6 a.m, get out and practice. And, you know, she gives example after example after example. The other one I really liked was the girl, and I didn't know who this was, Wilma Rudolph. But she is, I guess, labeled the fastest woman on earth, at least when this book was written.
Mm-hmm.
And then just her journey too. Like she was one of like 20 something kids, a sickly kid. I guess she had scarlet fever, pneumonia, polio growing up.
That too. Yeah.
It made one of her legs paralyzed. She was in a brace into her teens, but she decided she wanted to get out of her brace. And then she started competing in track meets and she lost like every competition, but she kept pushing. And her mindset was, I love this, that she just wants to be known as the hardest working lady.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a great,
So powerful.
that's the perfect example of a growth mindset.
Absolutely.
You know, everyone labeled her as the fastest. She wasn't accepting it. She's like, no, okay, that's fine. You guys can go ahead and identify me as that, but I don't identify myself as that. I identify myself as the hardest working lady. And that's a great way of how a great mindset should be, right?
And it can take you, and this is where I love how Carol transitions all these stories. And there's, oh my goodness, so many we didn't even bring up. But she then goes into the concept of character. And I feel like this is where it goes a little bit to Atomic Habits too, where to get to the top, even based on natural ability or gifts, is easy. But to stay at the top, that's what takes good character. It takes a growth mindset, right? And it takes those atomic habits, right? You have to continue to practice. You have to be okay with the mundane workouts over and over to get better and better at things, which is so true, because
I think that actually can even refer way back to the first book, which is why, right? Because as you're building up your empire, right? You're building up, you're getting to the top, you're working, you're still humble because you haven't reached the top yet, right?
Right.
And so once you have your why in your head that you're working towards this goal, that goal is over your why, right?
There it is. There it is. There it is.
There it is. But once you got it and you're on top of the world, how to keep it, right? Because now you're hearing everyone tell you you're the smartest person. Look at everything you've accomplished. You know, you're such a good person. You're so smart. Oh, you're hearing all of the compliments. So, you know, it does feed the ego, and you start believing it. You start believing your own. Right. So, and then what ends up happening is the fall from grace, right? Because you stop growing.
Well, and I think that's I think you're going to lose some, you're going to win some when you're at the top, right? And I remember vaguely, but reading this book, it reminded me, it jogged my memory. Michael Jordan obviously was he did a lot of Nike ads, and he one of his ads, he was basically owning that. He said he missed more than 9,000 shots. He lost more than 300 games, right? But I think what Carol's trying to get at, and this is so true, you can't let those failures define you. And that's where she's drawing the line between fixed mindset and growth mindset, you know, in this case, right? So he missed 9,000 shots. Even just one missed shot, he could decide, oh, he's a failure and walk off the court and never play again. Right.
I dare say he had 9,000 opportunities to figure out what went wrong in order to fix it so it could do better.
Well, and that's what he said he did, right? Right after the game, he would stay on the court and practice that shot that he missed, you know, from wherever he was standing, whatever it was, and just practice it and practice it and practice it so that particular thing wouldn't be a missed opportunity again. You know, and since the beginning of our friendship and business relationship, you've always called these challenges and and things that don't go the right way the first time. You've always said they're opportunities, they're lessons, right? I love that.
Thank you.
Mindset, my friend.
You know, I learned this, and I hope one day Clarette watches this. But Clarette, when I first brought her on board, we would have little things that would happen in the business, right? Processes, or, you know, everything has a little nuance in there. And she would come in, she's like, well, I see that as an improvement opportunity.
Aw.
Yeah. I know. I go through my life right now when I have little things like that. I just say it's an improvement opportunity, you know? And it does stick. You know, if you go around and anything bad is happening, because bad things happen. I just had this conversation with my husband, actually. Bad things happen, right? Or do they?
or do they? Right? Or is that a chance for you to get stronger, get wiser, get tougher?
Yeah. Reflect inward and say, okay, this is happening to me. What am I here to learn from? What about this is happening to learn from? And then
grow from there.
Yeah. But it does. It takes a certain amount of grit.
Absolutely. Her next section digs into the business part of things. And this is where I think I reread it like 6 times because I'm like, oh my gosh, I had heard of some of these CEOs, and some of them were as I was coming into my professional life, and others are obviously happened in the midst of me. These were some incredible examples of huge companies that we all know, right? And different CEOs that sat in there. And friends who are reading along with us, like you'll see, and different examples I think will resonate with different people. But when she digs into that study that Wood and Mendora did, taking the business students and splitting them into 2 groups, and basically telling one group that they're judged, or they basically want to set them up with a fixed mindset. So the outcome of the task measured their abilities. So whatever happened with the task, that defined their capabilities. Whereas the other group was basically told, you're going to have different things to accomplish, and it's going to give you a chance to get better and become better leaders and managers. And the group who saw each obstacle and challenge, actually worked better together, tried to figure things out, problem solved, tried new things, right? Versus the fixed mindset, they were all very much, well, I can do this. And the results weren't as strong. I guess they had to pretend to be running a furniture company or something like that. So it just, the power of a growth mindset.
Well, when you get rid of the, what I like about that was, for me, I look at it as competition, right? Mm-hmm. If you eliminate the competition aspect of it and you start really focusing in on the teammate, the camaraderie, coming together as an equipped team, and you're not competing against each other, because really everyone fails if one fails, right? And then if you come in with that mentality on it, they flourish more. And even in my own business, I don't like to point fingers. I don't, I come in and just like, okay, guys, I'm not here to point fingers. I'm not here trying to micromanage you. There's a task that needs to be done. How can we come together to get the task done? Yeah. And that works 100% of the time. But if you start pointing fingers and you start setting these deadlines just because, and on one person only, the fixed mindset comes in, right? Yeah. And they start protecting themselves, or they start saying, defending themselves. I didn't do it. It was that person's fault, and the finger pointing and all that stuff. Finger pointing. Yeah.
The fixed mindset is so easy to fall into when you're trying to defend your capabilities, right? Or needing to stroke your ego, right? And prove good enough for something. Yeah. I've worked for several different incredible organizations, and some of them at different points in their time wanted to have commission sales versus like basically just the team collective. As a team, we need to achieve this. So I understand commission, right? Those who have the ability and push themselves earn more. So in theory, a really great, but when you're in a small store, a small building, going after that, it can turn really cutthroat.
Yeah. Feeling and all this other stuff starts happening, right?
Totally. Yeah. Well, and I even watched as just customers were not like, they were almost assessing who was going to buy and who wasn't going to buy. And therefore they would spend time and stroke the ego of the customer who was going to buy, get them to buy more. And then the customer who they perceived may not. It was just, oh, goodness gracious. Right?
Yeah. And it happens in a lot of different, we're coming from retail, but I could just imagine it coming into any category of business. Any category of business, you're going to have, if you're not working as a team, then you're working against each other.
Yeah.
And we're going to be talking about relationships, but relationships are very much the same way. In a marriage, you have to be working as a team and not not on different sides of the fence, that type of thing.
So I had no clue. Like, this was really eye-opening, what she calls CEO disease, right? And she spends a lot of time talking about Iacocca, who I guess worked for Ford for a while, and his thought was, everything that he did for Ford, that he was going to be Ford's, like after Ford retires, he would take over the company and have all this like pomp and circumstance and hurrah for him. But Ford had a different vision and didn't promote him when the time came.
And Ford didn't promote him because his vision was not aligned with Ford's why, first. And second, there was a lot of entitlement that was entangled. And just because I've been along with you for this long, I'm entitled to this, So the two things together, just
didn't work.
You didn't get that brass ring,
He left and he went to Chrysler. I guess Chrysler snatched him up.
Yeah.
And he basically positioned himself to look really good, really successful, but he got kind of stuck in that fixed mindset of needing to prove his capability versus trying to do what he could for the business. And I guess for a while, Chrysler fell behind and not creating new models of cars and innovating, right? That's when we really saw a surge in some of the innovations coming out of like foreign cars and things like that. And what got me is when his wife, I think Carol clarified it was his second wife, says to him, look at how we're richer, you're more famous, you're wealthier. Like, Ford not promoting you was the best thing that happened to you. You get over it, basically, because he just couldn't let it go. He had to get revenge, basically. He had to prove he was the top person. And he divorces her.
Yeah, right. The woman who gave you good advice, you divorce her. Talk about not being appreciative. You and I, we talked about this briefly, but you're humble in the beginning because you don't know anything, so you're a sponge. You soak it all in, and you're humble, and you ask the great questions, or right questions, and you move your way up the ladder. And again, as you're moving up the ladder, you're being told you're smart, you're great, you're good, you're all this stuff, right? Feeding your ego, right? And so you start believing your own crap as you're going up this way. And then once you get up there, now you start going into defense mode, right? Now you're trying to defend your position.
Yes.
Right. Instead of on the offensive, which is the offense is that growth, right? You're pushing up, you're struggling, you're fighting your way up there, and that's what I really believe happened to him, is that he fought his way up there. He was humble enough when he first went over to Chrysler, right? Because he's just a guy, right? And so he's fighting his way up there. And then once he got up there, he's like, okay, now I need to defend my position. And so his way of defending his position was writing inspirational books where really they were just feeding his ego and, all these things he started doing to kind of just say, yeah, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this. When in fact, he really needed to reflect inward and say, am I this? Where can I improve? If I don't know this, who can I team up with in order to get me better? And his greatest team member was his wife. And that you tend not to see your weaknesses and decide to grow on them. You decide to eliminate anyone who's giving you any type of pushback.
Yeah, that's what he did. He was known for, if somebody challenged him or disagreed with him, he would fire them at one point.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh. So she quotes Andrew Carnegie in here, and apparently he wanted on his epitaph to say something along the lines of, let me see here. Here lies a man who was wise enough to bring men into his service who knew more than he.
Yeah, I know Carnegie, man. He's so cool. He was what's the word? Tycoon, right? Right.
The original.
Steel. I think he was steel, right? He was into steel, Carnegie Steel.
I would have to do further research in my history. I love history, but I think so. Yes, the steel magnet. I think so.
Yeah, and so I just love his story as far as, Kristin is the best at history, guys. Okay, I'm here for the ride. So she is so good at this. But I did watch some documentary a long time ago that talked about these tycoons and Carnegie.
Yeah, The Men Who Built America. Is that what you watched?
There we go. See,
yeah.
she even remembers the title. I just said I watched the documentary. She
we went through Rockefeller, Carnegie,
yes,
all of that. But I'm learning more about Carnegie through listening to a lot of motivational and people who have been successful. Like one of his other things, he said, I'm going to spend the first half of my life making a lot of money and the second half of it giving it all away. So it said something about his character, right? And things like that demonstrate a growth mindset, right? Because I don't know, it's when you do get into business, you're so right. When you get up to a certain point, you definitely want to defend yourself. You have to prove that you still are the best so that someone doesn't replace you or you don't get, ousted, if you will.
Yeah. Well, and I mentioned this to you briefly before coming on. One of the reasons why I always didn't want to come and do anything, putting myself out there in social media or in the internet publicly was, it felt so concrete that, 10 years, 15, 20 years from now, people can stumble on this video and see us. And I felt it was so concrete in time that I got to maintain that image. I have to be exactly, and that's why you'll see women that anyone really, they try to look as young as possible, especially if they're in the public eye, right? Because you want to be frozen in that time. Where I've now recognized I'm on a different journey with this. This journey is not going to be about fluffing my own ego up. It's really going to come out to, I've gone through experiences and I've gone through things in my life. And hopefully one of the things I talk about in my experience and throughout my life helps someone else who could possibly be going through the same thing, or someone who's trying to avoid going through the same thing and they reach out. So that's where I'm at. So I'm not going to identify myself by the story I have written so far. I'm going to be identifying myself by how many people I can actually help.
Yeah. I love that. And so, we've read a lot of great books so far. How do you think someone could help shift from, and I know Carol actually gets into this in her last chapters, like, how do you move into a growth mindset? But I'm just curious, like I have already, based on what we read in, Start With Why, and then even Think and Grow Rich, Atomic Habits, like how do you recognize that you might have a little bit of a fixed mindset and how do you move yourself into growth mindset? What do you think?
Oh, good.
Did you ever have to move through that?
Well, it's funny because I find the hardest one would be figuring out if you're in a growth mindset, because I think acknowledgement, we're talking about the 7 levels. So acknowledgement, is going to be one of the hardest breakthroughs. But once you have that breakthrough, if you acknowledge that there is something that you have been fixated on, there's something that you're just, you push back, or every time someone tells, actually, if anyone tells you something opposite to your thinking and you get that little anger or feeling like you need to defend yourself, or you're like,
that's fixed
mindset. Yeah, what the heck is wrong with them? I'm not that. That's fixed.
Right.
That's a fixed mindset, right?
So first you have to identify it, right?
Yeah,
make it obvious.
Yeah. So that's the first one, right? After you've identified it and you've acknowledged it, then actually it's a little bit easier, because now you have a decision of saying, okay, let me go ahead and work on this if I want to. Let me do, read some more books or watch some more YouTube videos about people who are coming across the same challenges and what do they do to get out of it. Or, maybe even teaming up with an accountability partner that you tell them what you just discovered and you want to get out of it. You want to change it. And so now but really the biggest part of that challenge is acknowledging it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's how I go with it. And it's even when I have an argument with my husband comes and he says, no, Leilani, you always do this. And I'm like, no, I don't always do that. And then a part of me, about an hour later comes back and says, do I always do that? And then I start thinking about it. I'm like, maybe I do that. And then I'll think about it. And then, because us women, we never say sorry right away. Okay. So well, this woman doesn't say sorry right away, but I do reflect on it. And then I'll make a decision whether or not I believe the that statement was true or not.
Yeah.
And I'll even go out of my way. If a statement was said about me, I'll ask someone else to say, do you feel this way? Someone I have in confidence, and say, hey, do you feel this way about me? And if they say yes or no, then I know where to go from there,
Yeah.
So it's just something that I've done internally, as far as, I don't ever want to sit there and just toot my own. No, I'm perfect. No one's perfect.
No one's perfect.
No one's perfect. And at least just taking the time, I really feel like even taking the time to reach out to someone and asking them, hey, what do you think about this? I mean, that's big, because people just be like, no, they're wrong. No, And,
well, the third part that she digs into with relationships, she even talks about like the friends that you surround yourself with. Like some people intentionally surround themselves with friends who just stroke their ego.
Yeah.
Oh, you're amazing. You're beautiful. And that does feel good to hear, right? Like a lot of us, our love language might be words of affirmation and stuff like that. But when it's time to help someone be a stronger person, grow, like who do you surround yourself with, and do you want that type of feedback, right? And I think the place we should be able to be most vulnerable is often family members, a mom and dad, or a sister or brother, or something like that, because you feel like your family, you're going to have them no matter what. So even when you mess up big, they're still going to be your mom, your dad, your sister, your brother. And then the second becomes your spouse over time. But it's the friend group that can be so vital too, because a lot of times we're our truest selves sometimes around our friends.
Yeah, I agree.
If they agree with us.
I agree. I definitely can agree with you that, who you have in your inner circle is going to be
super influential.
Very influential. And it's, it's like that old adage of, tell me who your friends are, tell me who you are, that thing. Yeah. I don't even know if I said it right, but something along that line.
Sounds great.
It's very true. Once I started surrounding myself with like-minded individuals and people who push me and held me accountable for things, it changed the dynamic of my own life, my personal, what's going on in the company, what's going on even in marriage wise, you start cutting out people who are not contributing, because you in your marriage you're always going to have, it's okay to have a single friend, right? I'm not saying you don't have to be married, only married friends. It's okay to have a single friend, but is it the bitter single friend, or is it a single friend who's like in awe of the marriage and just happy for you guys and all this other stuff,
and looking out for you both, right?
Yeah. Sure. And so that comes into play. And then it's just, and professionally too, you have to have professional friends, right? Other friends that are, whether or not they're in business for themselves, that's irrelevant, but it's going to be professionally. How are they doing in their job? How are they managing their professional life and their personal life? And if their values align with yours, then keep them in your sphere, because that's also really, really important. Like you just said, you're your truest self sometimes in front of your friends. So I don't want to be, and I sometimes lack that filter. And you would think CEO of this company, I don't tell myself that story. I'm not the perfect person, and I let things die all the time, but I do trust that whoever resonates with me will like what I say, and whoever doesn't, that's okay. You can move on to the next one. But my friends and my friend circle, we all kind of have a very similar undertone of what we value, and how we see life. And that's great for me, because we can feed off of each other.
Your tribe attracts your vibe, right? Or your vibe attracts your tribe.
I brought you into the tribe vibe, right?
But yeah, her relationships part of the book gives several examples of, dating or marriage. Do you have a fixed mindset or growth mindset? And in fixed mindsets, and you have a breakup or a fight, you move to the defensive, you move to argumentative, or even vengeful. Goodness gracious, but in growth mindsets, you're asking the other person for feedback, you're able to talk, you're able to communicate. And then when both of you, whether it's spouse or dating or friends, when both of you are in a growth mindset, then that's when there's a safer place to come to each other and say, hey, do you think I could have done this better? Or, hey, what about this? And that's so important.
It's so important too, because the feedback you're getting is honest. When you have that friendship where you can come, it's I remember my parents saying it's not the amount of friends you have, it's the quality of friends you have. When I'm younger, but yeah, blah, blah, blah. But now I'm like, I get it. I get it.
I see it. I understand it now. Yeah.
I understand it. That I know if I can call on these set of friends, and if I was having any issues, they would give it to me straight. It wouldn't be guarding my feelings. They would be telling me exactly what I need to hear.
Yep.
Because they knew I'd be able to digest it the way it needs to be.
Yeah. And I think when you really love someone and want the best for them, you're not going to lie to them. And not giving them the truth and the feedback is like lying. And then when you want the best for yourself and you believe that the other person's looking out for you, it might be painful to hear. Like you said, you might need a minute after an argument with Danny or something and step away. But then you think about it. And I love that you say that you even might talk to somebody who's trusted and say, hey, do you think I'm a little bit like this sometimes? Just maybe once a decade, am I like this?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Because it's if he's mentioning it, and I know he loves me with all his heart, he's mentioning it. He's not mentioning it to win an argument. Right. What I mean? He's not vengeful. He's not vindictive. He's not manipulative. So I don't really believe he would be mentioning it just because he's trying to win a fight. Maybe he's actually mentioning something that's in my blind spot.
Right.
So let me, like you go get when you go to the doctor, you go get a second opinion, I'm gonna go get a second opinion just to make sure my disease is actually diagnosed correctly, and that's really what
let's meet for drinks, quick. Talk to you.
Exactly. So yeah, and then I love that, and that sometimes too in the relationship it can be the competitive field. You want to feel like you're doing more or as much or more than your partner, right? So that's where the competitive side comes in. And so within that has its own different dynamic of circumstances. But if you can keep that growth mindset of saying it's not competitive, in our relationship, and I'm talking personally with my husband, there's always, we've been together 20 years. So and it's funny, 3 to 5 years is a cycle of things. Don't ask me what it's all about, but it's 3 to 5 years. There's always something that happens and the other one ends up doing more than, if we're saying financially, right? Doing more than the other in order to make the household run. But even in the parent siding of stuff, sometimes I'm so overwhelmed with work. My husband has to come in and be both mom and dad sometimes, with the kids, and he has no problem. He'll get up and cook dinner and all that. Because we became a team, growth mindset. We understood that I had to learn to do certain things that normally would be considered a man's job, and he had to do things that would normally be considered a woman's job. Yeah. But it wasn't about that. It was about pairing up as a team and saying, okay, where can I better support my wife or my husband at this point in time?
Yeah. What do they need, and what are they okay with? Too?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Because we're not in competition. It's not a competition,
And then he does it because he loves you, or you do it because you love him and you want the good of the family, right? It's not that I earned more money than you this year, right? Because that's toxic.
Because if you go in with the mindset of I'm earning more money, I'm the one who's wearing the pants, you guys have to do all that, you're no different than the CEO disease.
Right.
Because now all you're trying to do is defend your position instead of grow from there, and I love when we talked about in this particular episode, we're talking about sports, business, and relationships, because every single one of them comes to the core of competition. But eliminate the competition and think as a team, how can I best support my teammates? Whether it's in your professional life,
right?
If you're on a baseball team, great, your team members. And even if you're in a relationship, and it doesn't mean that you're married, this applies to every single person out there as well. Because you surround yourself. No one here is a hermit, because if you're a hermit, you're not watching this. So if you're not a hermit and you have yourself surrounded by people that this relates to you too. You're not in competition with your friends. And if you are, you might want to consider your relationship. Are you guys really friends?
Right. That's so true. Holy cow.
I step off my pedestal now.
No, as we were talking about relationships, I remember when Kevin and I first started dating, and he came to meet me. I was about to get off work. He came into the store I was running at the time and was just going to wait off to the side and then walk with me to the car. And I was helping a couple, and I think, were getting ready to celebrate 25 years marriage, right? And he and I were only dating maybe 2 or 3 months at the time, but we were far enough along in just life experiences that we had decided, okay, if we're going to start dating, then this is going to go somewhere. Like, we weren't dating just to date, because we were a little bit over that whole, if we were going to date, we were going to see if this was going to turn into a long-term permanent thing. So we were already that lens at 3 months in. And I was helping this couple, and they were just so in love. I thought maybe they were newlyweds, but no, 25 years.
Wow.
And I remember asking them, like, what's your secret? And they said that as you go through life, you will grow and you will change who you are. You are not going to be the same person you were when you first met. And the secret to success is either deciding to grow together and honor each other's growth paths and how you guys change, or be gracious and go your separate ways when your time is done. And I thought that was so powerful, because it's true. I am not the same person I was in my late 20s when I started dating Kevin at all. I don't even know if I recognize myself. Right. And it just happens that I guess we have navigated, now that I read the book, you apparently are navigating through growth mindset as a couple. Right. I change, and it feels really good, because sometimes he'll just send me a text or a note or something that he's just so proud of my ambition to learn and continually get better myself. And I'm like, we kind of do our tree dance together.
We're going to get that on camera, folks.
No.
Someday he's going to secretly
Danny in on this to secretly be recording him when he's not looking.
I'm going to get him on camera. I got to see that tree dance.
Oh my gosh. But anyways, it's just I think this is a great way to wrap up this, and just acknowledging all these different areas in our life where, yes, competition comes in and we need to defend who we are, so we think, or grow in who we are so that we can continue to get better. And getting to the top isn't the top when you have a mindset. Yeah. It's more beyond it. And if with a fixed mindset, you can't see beyond that peak.
Yeah. So there is no top. There is no top. And actually, there will be when we talk about our modules and stuff and goals and stuff, that as humans, we're going to accomplish one goal and move on to the next. And it is essential that we always have a next.
Sure.
You can never plateau, right? You can never plateau, because if you plateau, there's a feeling of emptiness. Yeah. The emptiness starts to, it's like they always say, you can never really retire, that type of stuff. It starts growing, and I think we cover that in later books, and even we go more in depth in that with our modules and Sage. But always having the next goal.
Absolutely.
Is essential, right? So there is no top.
There is no top. Well, cheers, my friend. Thank you for joining me tonight on this. I mean, my glasses, we're both empty.
Mine's a little clear. It's melted ice right now.
And thank you all for joining us for this. We're reading Mindset by Carol Dweck. You can order it off of the Sage Consultants website. I would say order yourself some of this Waterloo antique gin. My goodness. It's amazing.
It really is, guys.
And then please, if this motivated you or helped you, inspired you, please like and subscribe. We are working on building up, our tribe, if you will. Share this. It would help us out a lot. And thank you so much all for joining us, and we'll see you next. Grab a good book.
Yes, we figured it out.
Right? Grab a good book. Grab some booze. And grab a good buddy.
And grab a good buddy to share it with. Cheers.
All right. Cheers, my friend. And thank you all. Bye.
Bye.